Hope that we can start the second day. I believe that the first day was quite intensive and rich, and great to see you for the second day back again. This was in the agenda. There was a wrap-up of the previous day, but it was basically buffer for starting later, I realized. There are a few announcements. First, I think most of you have discovered the coffee service outside, and that's the contribution of the European Union to our nice life. So there are more practical things to meetings and life than European policies. But we'll focus now on the European policies for the next few minutes. And as we were yesterday looking a little bit backwards, looking what the UDRES has done, this day is supposed to look forwards, what we are going to do and what are the challenges ahead of us. I'm not sure if Vanessa is already connected, but Ramona? Okay. But we will have two keynote addresses, one from the Commission, looking at the entire concept and where the initiative of European University Alliances will go forward, what's the role of European universities, what can be the challenges, opportunities, and what are the discussions. And afterwards, we will have the reflection on the role of higher education in the regional context, delivered by Jiří Nantl, the Czech deputy minister. But when we agreed about his speech, Jiří was at that time the vice governor for education and innovation of South Moravia, which is the adjacent region in the Czech Republic. So I guess that Jiří will be able then to combine several views, because when we first met, he was working for the Czech Conference of Rectors on higher education policies, so I think the background is quite rich. So how are we with Vanessa? Well, obviously don't see her. I hardly see anyone in the room, but how was the evening? Bit tired. Was it that long? And if it was that long, can you tell me where in St. Polten you have found the place? Are we connected, Ramona? No? Okay. So we can open the space for any comments or contributions from you. How did you feel about yesterday? Was there anything you would like to reflect on? Nothing. I had a good feeling yesterday evening, but now it's getting a little bit depressing. Yeah? Okay, thank you for Coffee for Europe. Okay, so we are online. Can we get Vanessa on the screen? Hello, Vanessa.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome in St. Polten. And it's a pity that you can't be with us. I have to say that this is also the flexible change on the side of Commission, because formally we have announced that it will be Sofia Eriksson-Waterschoot, but because of intensive Spanish presidency of EU, there are other events which required Sofia's presence, and therefore Vanessa was kindly offering her contribution, and I would say that's the best option we could have had, because Vanessa is basically the dame of European universities. We've been discussing the European Universities Initiative from the very beginning, and Vanessa is the person who stands behind all the plans, all the implementation, and all the policy. I guess you know everything about each of the 50 alliances by heart, and we would be really grateful to hear about your view, Vanessa. What's the future? What are the challenges? We had very rich discussions in Barcelona last day, so I think there's a lot of input about what we can expect in the future. So I will give you the floor, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's really, and dear rectors, vice rectors, academics, students, researchers. I know that there are representatives of the regions and also different ministries today. So it's a great pleasure to be, although online, but with my heart with you today for this E³UDRES Forum on connecting universities with regions. And it really comes at the right moment while E³UDRES 2.0 has been approved. And this is going to allow you to deploy all your joint activities to more faculties, more departments, more services across your higher education institutions, so that a large majority of your students and of your staff can benefit from the new perspectives that E³UDRES brings to each of your higher education institutions. And this will allow you even more to connect between your higher education institutions, but also between your universities and your regions, to bring them the talents that they need. With the E³UDRES Living Labs and new challenge-based approaches that you will integrate in more and more existing or new programs, this will allow your students to become actors of change to address the challenges faced by your regions. As our president, Ursula von der Leyen, said last week in her State of the Union speech, when Europe is bold and united, it gets things done. And you are the proof that this is true. And you are not only connected within your alliance between your universities and your partners within the regions, but you are also connected across the alliances to partner for other European universities, as well as with the coalition of the willing, with SMEs and startups, and you work on common challenges to build strongly your engaged and entrepreneurial European university as driver for European smart and sustainable regions. So as you have all understood, and as our Vice President Skinas reminded to all of us in Barcelona last week and a moment ago to all the ministers responsible for higher education, European universities are not a project, but this is a long-term initiative that will bring structural, systemic, and sustainable changes to your universities, but also even beyond, because you are going to help us to reform the higher education sector across Europe. But as for any bold and ambitious initiative, such as this one, there are challenges along the way. For example, sometimes the lack of coherence between national higher education policies between different member states can come into the way of your wishes to build your European university. For example, in Barcelona last week, during the forum of the European Universities Alliances organized by the Spanish presidency, we discussed a lot, for example, on quality assurance and accreditation systems for small learning units that can lead to micro-credentials, but also to joint programs. We heard our president Ursula von der Leyen, President of the Commission, in her State of the Union speech last week, how important for Europe to get the skills that Europe needs for European sovereignty. She mentions, for example, skills that Europe needs in artificial intelligence, microchips, clean technologies, etc. And of course, higher education institutions have a key role to equip students with these skills, but also with the future skills for the future jobs that we don't know yet. And for that, we need higher education institutions with programs, with micro-credentials that needs to be responsive to the needs of society that evolve very quickly. And that is why higher education institutions came and see what can we do to make accreditations a bit quicker and more responsive so that we, universities, can be more responsive to the needs of society. And that is why we are working on a European quality assurance and recognition system with the objective to support national quality assurance agencies to bring this agility that universities need, brings this higher responsiveness of the systems, but of course for that we need the support of all the ministries across the different countries. So if we can partner together to bring these messages to the member states and to the ministries, I'm convinced that we will manage to make this issue evolve across Europe for the benefit of everybody. But speaking about joint education activities and joint programs, we cannot deliver that without enthusiastic academics. But all this work needs to be valorized and recognized in their careers. And today, we know that, and we observe, and we have data, we have evidences that shows that research activities that are extremely important and that are part as well of the European University Alliances, they are very well recognized in the careers of academics, which is great, it's fundamental. But unfortunately, we don't see international, transnational joint education activities as recognized as research activities. So there is room for improvement there. And that is why we want also to work with member states and with universities to see how we can further improve the situation so that all tasks of academic staff, be it on research, but also education and innovation and bringing closer universities to society, these can also be recognized in their career. So that's the second policy initiative that we are working on and hopefully be able to present it next year. Now, another key priority for the Commission, and this is part of the letter of intent from our President Ursula von der Leyen to the Spanish presidency, is to work next year on a joint European degree. This is not something that is going to be compulsory for any university, but for those who wish, and we have been approached by a number of universities that are working within European University Alliances, but also other kinds of alliances, they would like to really provide a joint European degree that symbolizes our strong European identity and also recognize and valorize all the skills that their students have been equipped with during these transnational joint education programs. And that is our objective. Our objective is also to make it easier for universities. We know that today developing a joint degree between 2 or 3 universities, between 3 different countries can be complex. And it is even more complex if we can imagine joint European degree between all the partners of E³UDRES. So that is why we need to work together. Last year, we have been developing European criteria, what could be European criteria for such a joint European degree. It is now being tested in the form of a label by 90 higher education institutions across all member states. And we will learn together with these pilots to come back next year with the state of play, recommendations for the next steps, and we will bring that back at the table of the member states to discuss with the member states on the next steps. Now, we have been approached as well by other transnational alliances of higher education institutions telling us that they need a European legal status. Again, this is not something that we make compulsory, not at all, but for those alliances that feel the need, we are currently testing existing European instruments, such as the GTC, the European Grouping for Territorial Cooperation, to see whether it fits the needs of alliances or whether it would need possibly to be slightly adapted to make it fit for purpose. So all this will be absolutely key to bring evidence on which we can develop new policies. And all this will benefit the entire higher education sector. But you see how European universities are really catalysts for change for the wide higher education sector. So as any pioneer, you are paving the way with all your efforts for more competitive and, most importantly, attractive European education area. And only together, with pooled resources and focused efforts, can we light the way ahead. So you can be proud of what you have achieved and what you are achieving for your communities, for your regions, and for Europe. Now is the time to press ahead, united, to shape a better future for us all. And I want to thank you for your commitment, hard work, and efforts. We are aware and we know how much work it is, and I really want to thank you all. But when I had the opportunity to meet students last week in Barcelona, I could see that all these efforts are really worth it when we see how happy the students are with such wonderful training and opportunities that you are giving them. And this is what is Europe. And that is even more important, thinking about the European elections next year, that as many European citizens as possible are aware of what Europe can do for them and for their children. So I look forward to our continued cooperation throughout the years to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa, for the overview, and I think it's very reassuring for the entire community, and it goes beyond the people here in the room to make us proud of being part of this development. And in fact, we have in the afternoon the meeting with the colleagues from the ministries, which was called by Elmar Pichel, the Director General for Higher Education, exactly to discuss the barriers, the challenges within the national systems. And sure, we face some, but we would be also quite interested in learning about the future developments, especially I think the discussion about the joint degrees and legal entity was quite inspiring for us. I would still like to open the floor for some questions from the audience. If there is any comment, any question. Johannes, Ramona, can you please pass the...
Thank you very much. Johannes Bade from the state of Hessen. We know each other already from Brussels exchanges. Thanks a lot for your introductory remarks, for your speech. And you kindly referred to the program of Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. And we have noted with high interest that last week, after her speech of the European Union, she also referred to higher education degrees and European degrees. And now we would be very interested to learn whether this new impetus, which Ursula von der Leyen now gives to the initiative, should then translate into quicker results, because the Commission has already embarked on this let's say, adventure on this interesting perspective. On the other hand, the mandate of Ms. Ursula von der Leyen is just another remaining year, approximately. So we are very interested to know what concrete results you would expect in this very mandate. Thank you very much.
Well, basically, because it is so important, as you can see, for our president and for the entire college of the Commission, that is why it is important before the European elections and before the next college that we can collectively put together in a higher education package all the building blocks that we have built together in the recent years and that we are now building currently with different pilots in European universities to present a higher education package next year as a legacy from this college to the next one. And we know that developing a joint European degree, we need all the member states on board. And we know that education is a national competence. So that is why our president wanted to bring it at the highest political level, because she knows that we need that high level of ambition if we want to bring all member states around this very ambitious but very needed objective. As I said, that we will have European elections next year. We need to give hope to the young people. We need to give hope also to their parents of what Europe can do for them, and what a better European symbol for European identity than a joint European degree that will bring to employers, that will bring to our society exactly the skills that our society needs now and for the future. So we have a momentum, and it's not that often that we have such a momentum. So we need collectively to use this momentum to make a gap, I would say, for easier transnational cooperation. So that is the moment. We have been through 20 years of the Bologna process, and we have seen it's a fantastic process, but we have seen the limit of that process. And now Europe wants to be bold, and we need all together to cooperate together to be bold and use this momentum together.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't see anyone raising hand. I would have one more comment myself, or question or request, Vanessa. We have had yesterday quite a discussion of the stakeholders, what may be the role of higher education in regional development, community development, and it actually reminded me when Johannes raised his voice. We were also discussing what the issue of synergy of funding. There are a number of different activities, and I know that you are working on the investment pathways, sort of looking into the future, what could be the financial model, what could be the removing the obstacles. Maybe would you be so kind to develop a little bit on this topic, what we can expect in the long term for the financial and legal support? Thanks.
No, thanks a lot, Michael. It's very important that you raise this point and give me the opportunity to explain. So, as you have heard, and you may have heard from our Vice President Skinas last week in Barcelona, this is European Universities Initiative is a long-term initiative. So that means that we need to bring sustainability. At the moment, European Universities Alliances, including E³UDRES, you have Erasmus Plus funding until 2028, 2029 that is secured. Now we know that this is not enough. With this Erasmus Plus budget, you are setting up new governance, common strategies across all your missions, education and training, but also research and innovation. So we know that many of you are benefiting from Horizon Europe funding, and also others from cohesion funds on top of national funding. Now, of course, we understand that it's not easy, and one of the alliances gave this image of an octopus to be able to manage all these different sources of funding for common single objective. So that is why now, in the context of the midterm review of all the European programs, we are looking into an investment pathway meaning how we could bring more coherence and more synergies between these different sources of funding, be it at institutional, national, and European level. So we have started a round of meetings and consultations with your ministries, but also with higher education stakeholders, with coordinators of European University Alliances. In October, we plan a peer learning activity between member states to discuss the level of funding, but also, for example, when it comes to national funding, the timing, the duration, the conditions that are very different from one country to another. And that does not make it very easy for universities to handle it. So it's a very, very important process, but it cannot be top-down. So we need to collectively work on it at all different levels. And this is what we do with the objective to present a proposal by the end of next year.
Okay, thank you very much, Vanessa, and I'm sure that we'll be in touch on discussing these things, and I think we all really want to thank you for all the support and moving things further, because that allows us to go through this exciting pathway, and we'll keep you updated as well on the developments, and one day we will be happy to invite you, welcome you in person at some of our meetings. Thanks a lot.
With great pleasure. And please, if you can share with me the outcomes of all your rich discussions, I would be very pleased. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There's the whole night video, so you will get it. And okay.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Have a nice day.
Bye. Bye.
And fine, so now we set the scene. We know within which framework we operate. So let's listen to what would the practitioner, politician, expert, whatever your face you will choose, Jiří, will share with us about the experience of role of higher education in regional development. We were discussing that despite being the deputy minister, Jiří might probably focus more on the experience from the region. But let's see how you mix the experience together. Jiří.
Okay. Good morning. We first need to solve a practical issue that my presentation I only sent to Michal, so he will need to upload it. But as a practicing public official, I can do without any PowerPoint. That's mainly to your benefit. I'm in the first place very glad that you're having me here and that I could make it in person. I was a bit worried this might change because we are just nearing the completion of negotiations of the Czech Republic state budget for next year. So there are some sleepless nights. I mean, even worse than at the conference. But I will be very glad to share my experience. And just to sum up, I now am again in political office, but for most of my life I actually worked in the university environment. So I still consider myself more maybe an academic person than or academic manager than anything else. And from that perspective, I also wanted to outline maybe also the overall context and theoretical framework in which universities develop and take some public roles. Then what are the concepts? Okay, yeah. Okay. Then what are the theoretical concepts that underpin also the regional role of universities, but many other things. But above all, I wanted to share the work and developments that we did in South Moravia. I also want to acknowledge that South Moravia is a neighboring region to Niederösterreich, the Lower Austria. I think Niederösterreich is perhaps the most important neighbor to us. It's also the region with whom we have the longest border, especially our cross-border collaboration in health emergencies rescue services, I think is a showcase of what a European cross-border collaboration should look like. And therefore, I'm very glad I have the opportunity to be in St. Pölten. It's really our dear neighbors. And now let's go to the presentation or my talk. So I just wanted to remind that you probably know the theory of development of higher education system by Martin Crowe. I will not repeat it much. I just want to underline one thing. Most people always focus on how the proportion of the age cohort that enrolls higher education changes the higher education courses and maybe the institutions. But it's often overlooked and forgotten what Crowe said back in the 70s about the relationship between higher education institutions and the society. And that's a very important message, because he says in the universal system, which is the one where most young people enter some form of higher education, there are basically no boundaries between the universities and the society. So that's something I think that we experience nowadays in the daily life. That's something that's maybe sometimes required by the policy documents, but Crowe said 50 years ago, half a century ago essentially, that's some sort of natural principle. So it requires a very flexible operation of both sides. This is maybe something that we should have in mind. And I also like the history. I always enjoy reading history, so I think it's important to say the regional role of higher education is not something entirely new. And if we look on the history of European universities and the regional development back in the Middle Ages, there are very interesting cases like how Basel in Switzerland developed because in the neighboring Baden-Württemberg, the Bürgermeister in one town decided they don't want a university because they saw no reason and no profit for that. So the teachers, the professors went to Basel and established the university there, and it was one of the very important factors behind developing Basel as an important city and center. So just saying, we are not really discovering anything entirely new in principle, but it takes new forms. And in current times, following the expansion of the higher education systems, of course, the regional role and the more nuanced versions of it are increasingly developed by the policy documents, which start to emerge in that respect at the crossroads of the centuries, and are also measured by the EU multi-rank that started to be piloted and then fully operated basically a decade ago. So it's something that the governments and the public now have tools to somehow reflect on. And we can take also the reverse perspective from the regional or the policy side. There has been a trend over the past decades of regionalization of Europe. We speak about Europe of regions. A lot of the tasks have been delegated to the regional level, not only in federal systems such as Austria, but also in states like the Czech Republic, where we are not a federal state, but still increasingly the regional governments are becoming responsible for more of the essential services. Regions in the Czech Republic have an important say in the transport, integrated transport systems, healthcare, schools, and social services. And especially in some countries such as mine, this is enhanced by the cohesion policy, which basically aims at the regional level. So regions have become, over past 2-3 decades, a much more important level of governance of in Europe than they used to be before. But there are some peculiarities how regions operate. So from my experience as a former vice governor and a person who stood for a campaign, I can say it's a bit difficult to interact with the public at the level of region, because people know their municipality, that's the place they live, then they reflect on the national issues which they have in TV and social media, but communicating and discussing about regional issues is another level, and it's quite a challenge. So I escaped from that to national government. But universities and other stakeholders can play an important role in that, and I will speak about it. So as with anything else, and I worked myself earlier in higher education policy studies and lectured about that at the university for some time, there have been developed concepts. So some authors said that we need to see all this development in the frame of the idea of what they call collaborative regional governance, or at the more general level, network governance. The current theorists of administrative science say that we nowadays live in an era of governance in networks, so the top-down approaches are not really relevant as they used to be, or cannot be applied to all the contexts, and we govern through networking and interacting various stakeholders. And the role of universities and the regional role of universities is being described in three broad areas. First is, of course, knowledge generation, and all what that means. Then academic support to the regional policy making, that's, let's call, applied research, relevant and tailored to the regional needs. And the third role, I think, very important, and I could give a testimony from a number of cases during my service as vice governor, the facilitation to connect the region internationally. In most cases of regions, the university or universities there are the best internationally connected institutions that are on the spot. The universities are better connected internationally and to the world than the regional governments themselves. And very often when we had visits from the foreign delegations, ambassadors, and other colleagues, a lot of the content of the talk we had as regional government with them was about how to better interact between universities, or how to interact between universities and business. So the universities were really at the core of the interest of most actors going to talk to the regional government. So also at this conference, I think you play this role. So now let's look on South Moravia. South Moravia is a self-governing region in the Czech Republic since 2000, when we introduced overwhelming reform of public administration in the country. So now the Czech Republic has 14 regions of different size. The South Moravia is among the 4 biggest, together with Prague, the Moravian Silesian region and Central Bohemian region. We have approximately 1.3 million residents, of which 1/2 live in Brno and the metropolitan area, and the rest in the countryside. I can use the term here probably. And we have in the region 672 municipalities. The Czech system of public administration is similar to France, so we have very many small municipalities. 75% of our municipalities have less than 1,500 inhabitants. Then we have 21 districts, which are top-down administrative structure, and 50 voluntary inter-municipality communities, which are bottom-up, made by the communities. So it's kind of complex, and we have 6 public universities. And over all the time that the South Moravian region existed as a self-governing unit, they have been very important partners, also helping us as a regional government to address the 3 main structural issues which over the time we had and still have. And that's we have comparatively low budgets as regions in the Czech Republic. That's because most of the tax income goes to municipalities, which were there earlier. The regional layer was added later. Then within the South Moravia, I always kept saying that we are like the Czech Republic in a small size, so we have big disparities in socioeconomic conditions within the region. So we have the Brno metropolitan area, which in socioeconomic indicators is like Prague. It's very rich and quite expensive part of the country. But then we also have 6 territories within the region that meet the characteristics of disadvantaged regions. And we intervene as regional government in helping the local communities there. And we are doing that within a very fragmented municipal structure that I have shown. So one of the issues, and I will get back to that later in one of the showcases, was how to work with all these issues with almost 700 mayors. That's quite a difficult task. In tackling these issues over the past 20-25 years, the region has learned to work in very close interaction with universities. And the method of working in that has been setting up together with them as co-founders and members autonomous agencies that help us to mobilize knowledge capital and also organize the whole thing. And there are nowadays 3 main agencies. There are also some smaller that need not to be mentioned there. But 3 main agencies that have been added one after another. Since 2003, we have the South Moravian Innovation Center, the GIC, which is maybe known to people who are who look on the business innovation and startup scene. They are well reputed in the area of their work. Then we have South Moravian Center for International Mobility since 2005. And last year we added, and that was personally mine election promise in the manifesto in elections 2020, we created an agency for public innovations, and now I will guide you through what all that means. So the South Moravian Innovation Center is an agency that is owned by the region together with the city of Brno and the universities. And it's the Innovation Economy Agency. They administer the Smart Specialization Strategy, which has in South Moravia demonstrably led to economic transformation of the region, or I should say of the Brno metropolitan area, where we nowadays have over 500 innovative companies, not ranging from international companies to really small and medium enterprises. A lot of that, especially small and medium enterprises, not only in IT, which is typical for Brno, but also in the life science sector. The GIC is focusing on startups. They have various programs. They also have training programs for the emerging business leaders. The work is amazing. We have recently discovered that the region also needs more focus on what is being called foundational economy, so how to facilitate to people to become hairdressers or that sort of maybe less innovative things. And we developed initiatives to that end elsewhere. But the GIC has been, I can say, a beacon of maybe the best known agency Europe-wide from South Moravia. We also have the South Moravian Center for International Mobility, that more serves the universities. It has tailored programs to attract international staff to universities. It cultivates PhD students. It helps to identify and foster talent. So it's not maybe for this forum the most important case. And now to the newest thing, which is the South Moravian Agency of Public Innovations. We have in the elections in 2000, I ran on the platform of promising an equal development of all parts of the region. So we said we want to be Znaim and Vranov, Nantl, which is nearby to Austria and is maybe the most remote part of our region, to be developing at equal speed and people having equal opportunities as in Brno and the surrounding area. And we said, and we also knew at a more practical level that we will need as a region to prepare for a time that the cohesion funds will not be available there, which is in 5 years from now. And so we decided and agreed with universities, we will create an agency for public innovations, or you could say a smart region agency, that aims at getting transformational project done with big EU communitary projects or Czech National Applied Research Project. We basically use the applied research potential of our universities to do transformational work in our region. We have agreed on a list of areas of operation. I think on top of the list is the digitization of social and health services. We are also the fastest aging region in the Czech Republic. So, and with some sort of geography, so this is a very hot topic, of course. Energy, climate change, very deeply felt in the countryside, especially in the south. Mobility, with that many villages. Modernizing public administration, that's about better interaction between the region and the municipalities. And citizen participation, which we understand as a model of taking together the informed stakeholders. I always say in the region, which is 1 million something inhabitants, there's about 10,000 people who really daily think about the region because they work in some positions in business, in NGOs, and we need to mobilize their potential to think together and influence policy. In the governance of the South Moravian Agency for Public Innovation, in each of the areas of operation, we've given leadership to one of the founding members. So, for instance, Brno University of Technology, which is strong on technology programs, leads on mobility area. Or the Nantl University, which has forestry and an agriculture department, leads on climate change. Masaryk University, which is strong also on public administration, leads on that. And by that, we want also in the governance to really give a strong role and leadership to each of our members so that they have real incentive at the level of the top management of the institution to embed this into their overall strategy and put their bets on it. It's also an important, I need to mention it there, it's also a very good tool for inter-regional collaborations that can build on the communitary programs. Nowadays, it's been 1 year since they were founded, but they already have a major project from the LIFE program to tackle climate change in the region. So that's what we have wanted from them when we decided their establishment, and it's maybe an example how, at a functional level, really to integrate universities into running the regional policy issues. I will, just to conclude, also look a bit on the lessons learned. We have discovered that really for unleashing the potential and the intellectual capital in the region, the close involvement as full members and equal members with the regional government in these settings is essential. It's also a sort of guarantee of long-term stability of the strategic directions. We politicians have elections every 4 years. And sometimes it changes very profoundly about who forms the regional government. But the setting of autonomous agencies with autonomous stakeholders, such as universities, helped us to really keep the direction, especially on the smart specialization strategy, basically over almost a quarter century. And that has been instrumental in the development of the region. And that's what now at a different level expect from the INAC, the South Moravian Agency for Public Innovation. We need really informed stakeholders, I said, the 10,000 informed people to be actively engaged also with digital tools in the discussion about the future of region. The autonomous agencies together with universities have also proved to be essential for shortening the time from idea to project, so we don't need to form a consortia ad hoc for every idea. It's really speedy. We can engage opportunities of applied research, which is nowadays also by the national government demanded from universities that they demonstrate a clear role in that. So this gives a pathway for them to make it at a systemic level. over the times they have emerged synergies. So when we started ENAC and when it started to operate, we discovered that for solving a lot of the issues they were working on, we can build on the business community that has been cultivated by GIC. So a lot of work, especially in the digitization of social services and healthcare, is being done on the principle of hackathons. So they gather the IT people for a few days and then they make a competition who emerges with a solution. And it also shows, I think nowadays, fiscal consolidation is a big issue in the Czech Republic, and at the regional level, the budget's always constrained. So part of these solutions also in the public sector can be business driven, and this can also benefit the universities. And as a last point, we have ourselves as a region discovered that really European networking is essential, and I would advise every European region to be active part of the ERIN, the European Regions for Research and Innovation Network, which is actively helping the regions also to connect them for forming project consortia at the European level. And it's a great tool of being engaged in respect of European schemes and collaborations. So for you, maybe advise, go to your regional government and ask them whether they are in ERIN, how they use it. It has really helped us a lot in several cases that only over my time I have the opportunity to observe. So that's maybe what I can say about it. I think I could even sum it up that connecting universities and regions can be either way around, but the South Moravia shows it's very important and beneficial to all sides. So thank you for listening. If there are any questions, I'm glad to help.
Would there be any questions or comments?
No.
That was clear. Vanessa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Vesa Saarikoski from E3 University in Finland. A very interesting presentation about the regions and activities in your region and cooperation and cooperation also between your region and universities. I was thinking, being here in Central Europe, it's quite easy to recognize in history many kind of regions. Some of those don't exist anymore, but interesting. I was thinking, what's your idea? At least 20 years ago, there was a lot of discussion about regions of Europe, as you mentioned, and now we are in a little bit different situation. And I wonder, what is your opinion about the future of these kind of regions? Because actually in our EURES, it is of course one of the basic ideas that we will support and want to promote these regions and their activities, especially by the universities and so on. But what about in the future?
The role of regions in European future, I think, I know, and we discussed that a bit over breakfast with another colleague from Hessen, that it looks somehow maybe in media and the developments in some parts of Europe, but I think at a practical level, the direction does not change. The regions are, and as I see it, will be increasingly important in delivering public services. And I don't think this has anything to do with the national policy changes. It's about being able to adjust the services to the priorities of the population, which increasingly is used to having all things customized. So they also want to have it customized. They have different preferences, maybe in South Moravia about certain things than in the Karlovy Vary region, which is 5 hours drive from us. So I think this is a trend we can bet on. Of course, what's maybe more difficult is, let's say, the fiscal policy setting. That is what the sort of taxes and tax mix we will need in future, and what redistribution of resources in society to use to fund the increasingly demanding public services, especially I was for part of my regional government service, I also was in charge of healthcare, which is consuming unlimited resources that you have available. Also with the aging population and the genomics-driven medicine. So I would, but that's my political preference as liberal conservative politician, I would say a part of that must be more private responsibility and insurance-based systems, because I think it will be very difficult to agree, especially at the national level, about the overall priorities, how to spend. But I don't think there will be some like revival of the big nation state in the sense that it would provide all kinds of services. Also, we should be aware, and people at universities are undoubtedly aware, that the reasons why certain systems of public services have been operated only by state or only by governments are not in all cases valid. So with the technology and overall change of society, it can be more plural market, more regulated by the governments. But I think regions are the level which can serve the size of 1, 2, 3 million people that can really express the preferences of how exactly it should look in their vicinity. And I don't even observe like real ambition at the national level that everything would be directed top down. It would create immense problems in terms of the political preferences. So I would be favor using what has been happening. The other issue in the Czech Republic is that the differences and inequalities between regions that are mainly given their size. I think it's better to have equal size of regions or so.
Hello, Diana Andone from Polytechnic University of Timișoara, Romania. Congratulations on your talk, very practical oriented, which is exactly what we need, I think. I have a question from the lesson learned at regional level in your new position as at government level now in education. What do you think that as a policymaker, especially, you can do for universities to really enhance their collaboration with the regions?
I'm not sure that's our main job at the national government. I think they can help themselves. We can inspire. So sometimes when I'm in the smaller regions, I talk to the regional governments and I advise what they could do. I think as National Ministry of Education, our main role, except we distributed the funding for teaching activities and research, but and we can probably highlight some things in these rules, but indirectly it's there. I think it's more important to give practical advice, but our main role is to develop a national curriculum for primary and secondary education. That's also the first line of our intervention now. What we want to do is to transform the secondary education so that it better equips the students for skills that are necessary for some sort of tertiary education, because traditionally in the Czech Republic, most of our people go to vocational education, but a lot of them, like 60% of them, still go to higher education then, and then we have the graduation rate problems that some of them fail because they don't have sufficient general education background to the mathematics level may be required for University of Technology or so. So that is what we are changing, and that is also what I think will best help the universities, that we redesign the curriculum so that the new generations are ready for the time where most people will need some sort of tertiary education or post-secondary education at one stage or later. But for the regional activities, I always thought that regions are autonomous. They should be also creative. So that there should not be one uniform form to follow.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So.
I believe, yeah.
No, so if that's all questions, I'm very thankful. I'm due to give a speech in Brno at 1 p.m. So I think I will be obliged to leave you, which I a bit regret. But thank you for giving me this opportunity to have one night and this afternoon in St. Pölten with you.
Okay, Jiří. Well, thanks a lot. We've been planning to welcome you in St. Pölten since I started here, so finally we managed. And thanks for the insights. I think it was quite helpful for our thinking what we might probably find as the way of interconnecting with the regions, serving the regions, and we would be definitely happy to keep in touch. What comes now is a bit of practical repetition what's ahead of us in UDRES over the next 4 years. And I'll give you the mic, Hannes, because we'll try to do that together with Hannes, going through the main points of what's our commitment for the future. I think that if I wake you during the night, you would be able to tell me what UDRES is about, so I don't have to read all of that. But sure, we are focused on regions, we are focused on non-urban areas. We are trying to support the sustainability, entrepreneurship.
Just
Go ahead.
even to that, a short comment, because as you totally, and I totally agree, you can probably wake up during the night and we are able to do this. But I think we always have to remind ourselves this is definitely our very important USP within and compared to all the other 49 so far alliances. There are only very few who are really focused on regions, also very few who focus on engaged and entrepreneurial university concepts. So I think this is what we stand for. This is what we are always, most of the time, also ask us to represent as a good practice on all this international forum and so on. So I think it's also important that we communicate it as much as possible with all of our stakeholders.
Absolutely, and we will actually test it. So you will get the night calls asking you, will you be able to tell me what UDRES is about? That's a communication package. I think there are meetings somewhere and they are planning the calls. You see the partnership distribution as, yes, as we also yesterday mentioned, we are expanding it to 3 further associate partners in Ukraine and 3 partners from Western Balkans. And we had some starting discussions how to engage with these partners, and we'll go on in the executive board. Again, the vision and mission, I think that's, again, in other words, what we just said, focusing on smart and sustainable regions, prosperous and peaceful European future. And we want to do that through the sort of well-developed institutions, well-developed people, collaboration, supporting the learners. But Hannes, you were working on the vision and mission. Is there anything you would like to comment? Because when we submitted the application, that was your main...
I think, once again, this is definitely our USP, supporting the smart and sustainable regions, promoting engaged and entrepreneurial European universities, putting the co-learning, I would say, in the very center, but of course support it as strong as possible with research, with innovation, and these kind of things. So I think we have a strong vision, a strong mission, and we have to go further with our implementation. Maybe one short sentence to the previous slides. As we said, we now enlarge to the 9. I think this is also a thing which distinguishes us from many other alliances, that, at least from my perspective, this enlargement was really smooth. And at least for me, it feels like Fulda, E³UDRES² Saxion are with us from the very beginning and not joining only in 2 weeks. We are already starting only on 1st of October, so everyone is already part of the UDRES family, and we have now also our 6 associated partners from the Ukraine and the Western Balkans, and I truly hope that we can integrate them as well and as easy, as smooth into the UDRES family.
You're totally right. I actually stopped thinking about that because I take it for granted that the 3 new partners have been with us for a long time. There are some values, and I think they will play still an important role when we start discussing what would be the UDRES label activities, what would be the UDRES focus in micro-credentials, what we would focus the research activities on. And again, I'm not saying that you have to have a tattoo of the context map, but I think we should keep it in mind when discussing how would we approach the activities. I think especially things like the practice-based, experimental focus on learning, inclusion. There are obviously things which are common for the entire higher education, like focus on digitalization, bringing research and innovation together with education. But again, I think we would have the specific focus on what we understand as research, our scientific activities. Would you wish to comment anything on the values?
No, not at this stage.
Not at this stage. Okay, so it will come later. We move to the strategic priorities, and I will unfold them in a second. And again, this was something what we tried to sort of translate the 1 year of discussions before submitting the preparation. But we came also with a review of the multi-I factor, and I can probably use the slide which Ramona developed to make it more visual. You were one of the person behind the multi-I culture. I think that's the space now for you to explain to the colleagues what was in our minds.
Well, the I came up with the iLiving Labs. We at St. Pölten did this already a little bit before, and together with another Finnish University of Applied Sciences. And then we thought, yeah, there are more and more and more of these I's, and I think this multi-I culture is a very important thing. It's easy to write it down. It's maybe a little bit more difficult to visualize it in this way. So, but for God's sake, we have Ramona with us. I think it's definitely hard work to implement it. Everyone speaks at the moment about interdisciplinarity, interactivity, inclusion, and so on, but what is really happening, what's really ongoing? We are, most of the universities all over Europe, if we're honest, far away from inclusion, far away from really having a good approach to the social dimension of higher education and so on. There's still lots of work to be done, and I think that's what we are aiming for. And if we go through the last 3 years, if we think especially about the phase of proposal writing, then it's more or less obvious that we really tried hard, and I think we did it very well to fit within the framework of the European Commission to really get to their objectives. I think now we really have to take care what are our objectives of our individual institutions, and not only of the institutions of all our colleagues out there. Vanessa talked about it's important to really engage more students, more academics, and so on. So we definitely need the answer, why should they engage? What is their added value? Vanessa also reminded us we have to find ways to have incentives for the academics, for instance, on the career paths, if they engage in activities like ours. But so far, I think we have not the best answers yet. We have to think more careful about this. There are loads of possibilities, and I'm very, very sure that we have found our a way. But I think this is an important step for the next, let's say, few months and probably years.
We also agreed that we will enhance the focus to the 4 areas. We have expanded from well-being to health, well-being, and social inclusion for the regions. We sort of redefined to some extent the formal focus on technologies into digital solution and deep tech to regions. We, I would say, scaled up the circular economy to resilient economy and innovation for regions. And the 4th one, which is the new aspect of what we want to focus, and we could have seen the example from Timișoara, the creative industries for regional identity. So this would be the framework of activities. This should be the main priority on which we would be meeting. And if I recall what the colleagues from the regions were speaking about yesterday, I think we are matching the regional needs to some extent. But again, Hannes, any comments on this?
Well, I think we have 4 strong focus areas on the one hand. On the other hand, of course, these are very broad topics. I think we are now really a strong alliance with these 9 partners. We have plenty of staff members, and yes, we do have the critical mass to succeed in all these 4. But of course, we now have to think, what does it really mean? Health, well-being, social inclusion. What are the specific topics? What is on the agenda? What could be topics for upcoming, let's say, Horizon Europe proposals, or also new Erasmus Plus partnerships? And a very important topic, I think, is also, as we know, now we have the 50, next year the 60 alliances, and then there will be about 10% of all European higher education institutions somehow involved in one of these alliances. But what is with the 90% others? Of course, there are very, very good universities as well. So I think we should also try to find for us, best institutions, best fitting institutions, which are maybe not in an alliance, but could help us to grow within these focus areas. So I think we have to continue to knit this network and with other universities, also with other alliances. And so I'm happy, for instance, that 2 colleagues from Bauhaus University in Weimar joined our forum. They are building their own alliance, but I think Bauhaus University, as an example, would be probably a very good partner for creative industries, for regions' identities, and some others as well. So I think we should also think about this, how we further proceed with our network, and of course focus on our existing alliance.
What it all means? Oh God, I can't read it. It's so small. Can you read that? Yeah. These are the strategic priorities, the smart learners to unfold the talents in the regions. And we promise that we will come with some sort of a set of guidelines, policies, principles for studying across E³UDRES to make sure that the E³UDRES activities are quality assured. We want to develop the different flexible formats for learning. Especially the micro-credentials are one of in our focus, but we also committed ourselves to come up with 4 joint degrees. And yes, we want to have the E³UDRES talent matching app. We need to define what we want to expect from that, but basically the purpose is connecting the students, alumni, businesses, regional partners, in order to sort of match their skills, match their talents, and allow them to develop further. We have focused on entre-innovators, and I guess Hannes can develop a little bit more on concept of entre-innovators, which is basically the internal capacity building. We want to have the joint support center, which would focus on innovative methodologies in learning, teaching, research, addressing the regional needs, governance. We want to have the joint doctoral schools, and by this we would like to have sort of the opportunity to engage even the institutions which do not have the PhD awarding rights to benefit from the partnership and sort of enhance their capacity and their opportunities. We want to set up and identify at least 2, if I remember well, the Applied Research Centers of Excellence, something where UDRES is really standing forefront of the development. And then there's a number of things within the platform for innovative collaboration within the regions, open innovation hubs, entrepreneurship and innovation network. And again, I think we need to start finding the way how to even strengthen our relations to the regional stakeholders, but also how to bring them together. What would they benefit from getting together? Hannes, any comments on this? Not only on Enter-Innovators, but...
I think the priorities are quite clear, and we worked already along this direction during the past, during the previous years, and I think we more or less know what to do. And I thought we are already very successful on the way until I wrote an interview with Leonhard Birnbaum. He is the CEO of E.ON, one of the largest companies in the energy sector all over Europe. And quite interesting interview about the transformation of the energy sector and the green and digital transformation and so on. And then it came to the point where he was asked if he is somehow in regular exchange with the universities. And he answered yes, but they have a different perspective. They answer different questions. They are irrelevant for me. And irrelevant, the interviewer asked, and he said, in a sense, yes. Think about fundamental research. They come up with the results, but they will help me in 30 or 40 years. I need to act right now. It's obvious that we have the climate change. It does not matter if we have to reduce this or that at 1.4 or 1.5%. I have to act now. I have to take my decisions right now. And so my alarm bell was ringing, and I think we have to really always rethink what we are doing. I still believe that these strategic priorities are the right ones, also as an answer to Mr. Birnbaum, which could at least, of course, lead to a long-lasting discussion. But we have maybe in many aspects also to speed up. And there is, of course, as Mika said, you can't even read all the bullet points. We have quite a lot of things to do, and there is a lot of complexity. I think we all would like to reduce the complexity, but this would not work. The only thing is we have to find a way how to manage complexity. And the former commissioner and also Vice President Ginas in Barcelona always came back to we have to manage by example. So I think the most important thing, what we have to do, we really have to come up with our good practices. We have to come up with if we know this from the startup world and the innovation management, these minimal viable products, and really come up with this, make our experiences, spread it out to our colleagues, and then take the next steps. And I think we started with this, and we have to proceed. And sometimes we failed. We stand up. We fail better for the next time.
And there are still 2 more. One is the regional communities for peaceful and prosperous society. So one thing which we really want to do is to look at what impact our universities leave within the regions. We are trying to find a tool which would help us to do that in, let's say, the light way, but starting the dialogue, the conversation with the regional partners to get some feedback, to map what we sort of bring to the communities. The second topic, again, mentioned several times, we want to find the way how we can support the colleagues from Western Balkans and Ukraine in their further development, and we will have the first discussion in the executive board this afternoon. And sure, we need to have some communication strategies if that's listed within the deliverables. I think especially if you will see in a while what we have committed to, like the indicators, I think we need to scale up the awareness of what UDRES offers to the students, what UDRES offers to to the communities, to the small and medium-sized enterprises. And then there's a sort of the, let's say, the forward-looking agenda driving towards the fully fledged European university. We still don't know how far we want to integrate. We will have 4 years to discuss how to do that. We have already established the association. We need to fine-tune some of the details, but that would be basically association covering the 9 full partners and serving the joint purposes, but the discussions might not probably stop at that place, or we will need to find the agenda. And sure, we want as well to use the resources for building joint space, like it's called the E³UDRES arena, which should be the entry point to all the tools, to the opportunities within E³UDRES. And then sure, we need to plan the strategy over, especially because we know that the European funding might stop at some moment. We need to look at other topics which were not covered within E³UDRES. We will discuss what are the other issues, and sure, we would like to have other supporting initiatives and projects. But Hannes, anything to comment on this?
No, I think it's very clear. Only would like to take the occasion to excuse me by Melinda Machut, because I asked her this very tricky question yesterday about the fully fledged European universities and if and when we will see it. It is a tricky question, especially for a person representing a national ministry. So excuse for that. But and we do not even know what it really is, how we can proceed. But I think it's an important question, and it's, let's say, kind of Europe in a nutshell, and I think we have to find a way, and we are already taking at least our first steps toward in this direction.
But for that as well, and we will have the discussion of the group tomorrow, we want to set up the E³UDRES think tank, the group which will be sort of following the trends, policies, translating them into sort of the strategic actions, proposals for further innovation, etc. Few examples, and I will not read them all, but I think the main one is basically we want to engage 50,000 students of all the partnership over the next years. That's the commitment of sort of exposing half of student population to any E³UDRES activity. It doesn't mean that they will be all sort of mobile for a semester. I think we would have to skip the sustainability from the name of E³UDRES. But we have to find a way how to engage at least half of the students by the end of this funding period. But we also have the capacity sort of to approach the citizens, to support the lifelong learners through the micro-credentials, through smaller units of learning, through different citizenship activities. We have the space, or we have the capacity to train. We estimated at least 500 people. We will not need only the new education entrepreneurs and T-shape innovators and whatever other positions we will come up, but we need also to sort of help the institutions to sort of follow the transformation. So there is some support, but if you look at the data, fine, they are quite challenging, like 60 startups or 50 startups, different business partnerships. That's fine. But if we look at the budget, we understand that this goes beyond the funding of E³UDRES 2.0, and therefore we need to integrate these activities with the institutional policies, and that's what Hannes said. We need to find what the institutions really focus on, what are the further priorities, and find a way how to do that together. Hannes, any comment on these goals?
Well, there's this saying, only those who try the absurd achieve the impossible. So I think this is what we somehow have to do. This is one thing, and the other, just can repeat what you said. I think we really have to convince all our colleagues, all our stakeholders, why it's good and how they can benefit from E³UDRES. If, for instance, we convince at least half of our program heads of the study programs, to integrate at least a tiny little bit of E³UDRES, maybe one course which is related to E³UDRES, then we reach these 50,000 students easily. And I think this is then, I think it would be manageable, and this in similar aspects counts for all the other KPIs.
Perfect. And the last one, and I will not go into the details, but this is just the structure, because sometimes we focus too much on the work packages. But what we have tried to group is the, let's say, the key content activities in teaching, learning, new flexible models of learning or entrepreneurship, education or capacity building, research and innovation, and engagement with the regions. Then we have some supporting, I would say the structure building of E³UDRES, which would regard the capacity building, which would regard the quality and evaluation of what we do, digitalization and infrastructure. And I would even put there the package from the future university, having the think tank as the group as of people around E³UDRES, not only the internal ones who would help us to develop further strategies. And sure, we have to have some activities regarding the management, coordination, and dissemination, that's obvious. I think there's not much to say about that. You will learn about the work packages more because the colleagues will be meeting over the next 2 days. Would there be any comments or questions to this? You don't see it for the first time, so you should not be frightened by the ambitions. We'll manage, yeah? Okay, yes. Students' voice.
Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to give a compliment on the goal of involving 50,000 students. I think it's a perfect example, right, of ambitious goals to really get them engaged. And let's say at Saxion you have, let's say 20,000 students. If the ambition is to at least involve 10,000, then that is, I think, a great example of what we need to address with E³UDRES and get everyone involved. So this is a big compliment to you.
And we rely on you, Koen, in your personal capacity. Yeah. Sorry, it's still the light issue like yesterday. Well, we'll have talks over and yeah, there's a coffee break. What we will do after the coffee break, and please remember, oh, sorry.
Hi,
Hi,
I do have a question, and it's about maybe it's a meta question, the regional focus. Okay, so we have to go deep into the regions and find things that are interesting for the region, whether it's research or innovation and so on. On the other hand, there is a network of 9 regions, so it's very unlikely that what's interesting for one region is interesting for all 9 regions. And my question is, how can we be really useful in our regions and also in the network without somehow diluting everything by trying to find this common element that may or may not exist, if you see what I mean. So yeah, just...
I would say I don't know, but I know. I think that's what we said yesterday. We need to listen. But at the same time, when I heard what the stakeholders said the last year in the stakeholder forum, what they said yesterday on the stage, I think there's a number of common problems. Fine, we need probably to adjust to the local situation. But what we also can offer then is probably the expertise throughout the partnership to address the specific issues within the regions. You're totally right, we still need to learn a little bit more, but I believe that there was also a lot of done already in the E1 project, which was mapping the regional innovation needs within the 6 formal partners, so I think we have something to build on. But what we would really like to discuss at some point is how to engage the regional stakeholders, the municipalities, regions closer. We don't have to set up the agency as Jiří proposed, but we have to find some structure where we can rather sit and listen what their problems are than sort of facilitating their discussion. But I don't know, Hannes, so would you have any?
Well, one answer is whenever you go to the US, Silicon Valley, or another innovation hotspot and ask them what is key for success in this thing, then latest in the second sentence they say diversity is key to innovation. So I think this is a very important added value. We have this diversity of the 9 regions. I think everyone more or less shares at least some concerns, some challenges, but on the other hand, the most important thing is that we can learn from and with each other. Maybe there are some challenges, for instance, in Latvia, where they have not the solution yet, but you could help. And so the very important thing is that we find a way how to get further with this kind of matchmaking, to really know all the potential, what is in our alliance, and bring the right people to the right places at the right moment. So I think this is what we have to find and what we have to proceed. And at least, again, I think we took the first steps, but still a long way to go.
Oh, I think this is great. I mean, I really like the initiative. Just maybe kind of digging into how to implement it on the ground.
and I think as Vanessa already mentioned, the European elections next year and so on, and what we can bring at least to all of our regions is to at least implement some of this European spirit. I think this would help Europe quite a lot, at least in the moment. It's just, again, very simple said, but hard work for all of us.
But thank you for the ideal bridge to what I was going to address now. First, I wanted to say that EU is not here just for the policies, but also for the coffee. So please use the coffee stand. There will be a break until 11:30, and then some of your questions, Vanessa, could be answered in the workshops, because we finally got to the point where would be more interactive workshops. We also scheduled it for 1 hour, which would be sort of introduced by few speakers in each of the workshops, and then that should be the group facilitated discussion. So we want to learn what would the groups come up with, and we will ask the facilitators of the sessions then after the sessions to come to the stage and share with us main 3 points within 1 minute. So that's really something to keep time. What were the main conclusions from the discussions? And what the workshops would be, you have them on the list in the program, but just to make it sure, Ramon, do we have, yes. We will have the enable smart learners to unfold talents, and we will have the input from E3BUDRES and Alexander Luka. Anika is from the Chamber of Commerce. Alex is the representative of students, so we will hear 2 different views, probably, hopefully meeting at the same point, and that will be facilitated by Klaas van Stenhuizen. We will have the workshop on serving as a platform for collaborative innovation to connect entrepreneurial minds, and this will be delivered by Franz Fiedler and Petra Fischer from St. Pölten University of Applied Sciences. We will have the workshop on engaging in regional communities to co-create services for and with society, and that will be facilitated by Giuliana Sabatini from St. Pölten, but having also the contribution from E3BUDRES², head of Valmiera Business Incubator, and Barbara Frebeck from the Enschede municipality. So there we would probably be just in the good position to ask what the regions would expect. Then we have the workshop on empowering innovators to accelerate future universities, run by Ronja Prale from Fulda, and having input from Radu Vasiu from Timișoara and Raquel Barreira from Setúbal. I'm not sure if there's anyone replacing Thomas Berger. You will find out in the workshop. Then shift to fully fledged European University to ensure excellent quality, student perspective. So this would be the student-run workshop on what may be the future university like. The students are welcome to join that workshop, but they are also welcome to join the other ones. But also non-students are welcome to join this workshop, and it will be run by Marta Denisova from Vidzemes University of Applied Sciences. And the sixth one, which is not necessarily reflecting the strategic priorities, but we thought it's really hot issue, is the artificial intelligence. What would that mean as the technological impact on regions, regional services? And Mika Karjalainen from E³UDRES was so kind to agree to facilitate that, but we will have also contribution from Torsten Priebe from St. Pölten University of Applied Sciences and Kari Pirinen from the Regional Council of Central Finland and Jari Hautamäki from E³UDRES. Enjoy the coffee. Be at your workshops at 11:30, and we will meet here at 12:30 for the final wrap-up, asking the facilitators for a few brief statements, and then we will conclude the conference. Thank you very much. main purpose why I'm chasing you. There will be a lot of time during the lunch. I don't see that far, but I can recognize you, Buyar, speaking. Okay, can we get to the final session? And I still hope that I don't see anything, but I hear a lot. Okay, we have to start. Please, please. I recognize the voices. We have to start. And can you turn the light in the room, please? Because the attention will go to the workshop facilitators. And I think it would be still pity not to hear what the other workshops were discussing on what they came up to, and I guess that some of the workshops are still working on it. So can we ask each of the facilitators to give us a brief reflection of what were the main 3 points and try to manage that within 1 minute. And we will start with Klaas from the workshop on smart learners. Klaas.
Yes, good afternoon. I'll be short in 1 minute. We talked about developing and enabling talents and how to do that. We discussed, of course, what is a talent, how to identify that, and we came up with the Japanese term of ikigai, because talent is the thing you like to do, you can do it, and you like to do it for a very long time. We also came up with the term that by now, usually, when talking about talents and employability in companies, we often discuss the aspect of what I can do for my company. But actually, in the future, it will be the other way around. You won't asking what you can do for your company, but you're going to ask what your company can do for you as a talent. Because we're in a talent crush, we need all the talents, and companies will not simply be delivering a job, but they will be delivering an identity, and we'll need to talk about that. And by talking on that, we also discussed the various learning paths that we can offer to develop talents, not just we as educational sector or company, but also companies with us and how this might be possible. We saw a number of examples on how this could be done. And definitely we talked about how E³UDRES is going to be enabling that to offer these various learning paths to work together in the future, to exchange how we do it in the various regions, and to make all our regions full of talents, but also full of happy people.
Thank you. Next one was the platform for collaborative innovation. So Franz or Petra? Franz, thanks.
Yes, and Petra will join me. So Petra Fischer and I, we did a workshop on platform for collaborative innovation. We focused on how to work together with SMEs and explained first what 3 hubs we operate here. We have the Digital Makers Hub, who brings together stakeholders who usually don't work together. We have the Digital Innovation Hub East, where we have experts in different technological fields like artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, AR, VR, and they are working together with the SMEs to help SMEs to get further in their endeavor of developing digital solutions, services, products, and workflows. And then we have the E1 Open Innovation Hub, where we bring together technology and art and tech. We work closely together with the creative industries and with people from creative industries to do things that nobody has done before and to see things that come up at the horizon. I have to say thank you to all participants at the workshop. We had 4 leading questions. And the first question was, what are the challenges when operating such hubs? And just in a nutshell, it's something along the lines that universities and SMEs often don't speak the same language. We have these entrance barriers, and we have to lower these barriers. A second question was, how can we overcome these challenges? And there were very interesting ideas. Just to give you one example, like put your students into the SMEs and like let the students do the project management for SMEs that don't have any idea of digitalization. And this is just one example of many, many ideas that came up in this group. Really great ideas. Yes, and Petra, maybe you can just briefly sum up.
I'm afraid not.
Not. Okay. Petra is happy with
Next
that.
time.
Thank you.
I'm really sorry, but we have to leave the room at 1. Julie, regional communities.
Thank you. We had a very open and interesting discussion with Barbara and Juris, and all the audience participated with. And I will try to summarize a couple of points we identified. The first of all would be a sort of a similarity between E³UDRES itself and the complexity of the networks and ecosystems we are working in the regions with. So we have the same kind of players and challenges with some diversities, but nevertheless. The second issue is about the role of universities and the role of the other players in the regions and how to build on each other and how to make some expectation management and pay more attention to communication. This would be one of the main challenges from our point of view. And the third one was about which would be the major impacts in our experiences. And the first of all is internationalization as such. So the internationalization which comes to the regions through the universities, through the university employers and students is one of the main impacts in itself. And also every region benefits from this diversity. And as a last point, we discussed a little bit about how to reach some sort of financial and structural sustainability in this cooperation in, for, and with the regions. And one model which stuck to our mind was from UCLL, with this difference, let's say, between nucleus and novus. What's the core of what we are doing, and where do we need and make available resources and skills for additional and new activities, and trying to find a balance between these 2 dimensions. Thanks.
Thank you. Innovators. Ronja, what you came up with the innovators?
Yeah, we had a very interesting discussion on how to empower innovators to develop future universities, and maybe for all of you who forgot already, innovators is a new word combining entrepreneurs, researchers, educators, and innovators. So one of the questions was already now, like how or why do these groups do not interact more with each other? And we said they all have different aims, different time frames. So to motivate them, it's really important to understand their needs and aims. And one idea to bring these groups more together was to also include aspects into promotion criteria in different jobs, so to really think of, we want innovators, so what does that mean, and what people do we promote in our different organizations. But the good news is that in the room we noticed most people are already to some extent entrepreneurs or researchers and educators. I mean, if you look at universities, most professors are doing research and educate students. So there's already a lot there, and the challenge we face now is how to break up these boxes. Yesterday we have seen we are all being put into boxes, so how do we open them up and come up with a joint framework of competences entrepreneurs need, and we'll do that in E³UDRES 2.0.
Thank you. Marta, what the students will tell us about the future university in 1 minute. That's good. Nothing. We'll hear it some other time, yeah, but in the meantime, can I ask Mika to wrap up the artificial intelligence challenges in 1 minute?
I want to feel the stage lights. It feels good.
Go on, go
okay,
on.
Okay,
Time is running.
We had 3 different perspectives. First, we heard from the perspective of regional authorities the rising maturity of AI in different substance areas. For example, rehabilitation, agriculture, security, and so on. The second thing was that we heard that, or understood that the universities are struggling at the moment to provide the courses and the knowledge for the industry. The industry needs for short courses and micro-credentials. So that's a challenge for us. And the last but not the least was Torsten, who squeezed out the end words for us, that universities need to teach the ethical questions to the world concerning AI, not just the technical questions. That's it.
Thank you. Marta, would you be able to share with us, with even shorter time than Mika, what you as students think about future university?
We had a really great workshop, but I will give a word to one of the students who participated there, because it was about student perspective, about E³UDRES activities, and yeah, Karina?
Yes, of course. Yes, so I enjoyed the workshop a lot, and as a student, I was very, very happy to see that actually it turns out that a lot of the teachers do think the same way as us, and a lot of the key values that were asked from us, whether we like where E³UDRES is going, what would we like to see in the future, actually reflected also in the minds of the teachers, and I think that's really, really amazing. And I'm personally, as a student from the student side, really glad to see that we are on board, all of us, and that we are working towards this goal together.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I will invite to the floor Hannes, who will have a very brief wrap-up session with Karim Kazar, director, the president of Fulda University of Applied Sciences, and Agnese Davidsson, the director of Vidzeme University of Applied Sciences, and give us just some sort of reflection of what we have been through. But before doing that, I have a few messages which I have to pass. First, we really need to leave the room at 1. And in order to incentivize you, there will be food outside. We would also ask you to return the badges, unless you really need to keep them for sort of your home memories or present from the journey, but we would like to keep them and recycle them for the next time. You can still have the picture at the E³UDRES logo. Is there anything else, Ramona, what I got? And if someone is really, really hungry, there are the tables reserved in the Mensa, but then you have to arrange it yourself. Hannes, I give the floor to you. We have something like 10 minutes for 3 of you wrapping up.
Just leave the floor to the colleagues, and then I take the time that
We will not leave you any time. Okay, I suppose I will start. I was just enviously staring at Karim's notes. I cannot produce so beautiful clouds. My notes look less sophisticated at all. Totally. But okay, we were asked to summarize, kind of wrap up the things that have happened here, but also speak about a bit larger picture. So what has been the experience of doing E³UDRES together, and also give some ideas for the future. And my thoughts are separated in, I call them like, I have some emotional thoughts, and then I have some pragmatic thoughts, and a bit also about the future. And of course, I want to thank everybody for coming to this event, and I'm extremely thankful to all the external stakeholders who took out these days out of their busy schedules, and also the ministry people. This was, I think, for many of them, very informative event, and very, very good opportunity also to discuss with us and get this kind of first-hand experience with what is UDRES, what we are doing here, and what we have achieved so far, and what we dream for also for the future. What came to my mind when I was preparing for this was quite an old book of Thomas Friedman. The book was called The World is Flat. Maybe you remember. And what he says that the historic and geographic division does not matter. So you can be globally competitive if you have some common goals, some common vision, and you are able to work together. And this I see as the at the moment that actually we have come to this point in this UDRES network. We have common interests, despite the probably some also regional difference. And so when we have common goals, we have understanding that this is not just another European project, that this is probably for the lifetime of ours and also the next generation as well, so that this European University Alliance is going to stay. And so we have to really think from this perspective and make most out of it for our organizations as well. This very strong commitment from all sides that we have the universities, we have the national, regional stakeholders working together, planning together. So that's very important. And what I see more and more when we are visiting each other campuses, that this visual identity, I think that's also very important, that we have kind of sunk in the thought in our minds that UDRES, this is us. So we put it on our walls, on everywhere. So we have these posters, roll-ups and people wearing UDRES logos on their clothes. I think that's very important. And finally, I want to say also that this 6+3 has worked very nicely to nine full partners of the Alliance. And as somebody today mentioned, that this Fulda, Saxion, and YAMK, they have integrated so quickly and so nicely that we have felt like 9 partners for quite a long time. It's not just that we will start in this composition in October. So the pragmatic part. I heard several times that there is kind of a little understanding what has been achieved so far. Of course, we will have beautiful reports. We have already them in preparation, counting all the results, number of students, number of events, everything. But I believe that Hannes now also is not invited to all these events all around Europe to tell about UDRES just because he's a very good-looking and handsome person, but he has really some story to share. So we have achieved remarkable results despite all the obstacles, COVID and whatever, so that we have achieved something. We have to be very proud of it as well. So that's what I want to say. Probably I give floor now to Karim, and then future. I can say a few more things about future.
Agnes, thank you very much, and thank you for making a start. I can underline and highlight everything that you have said, in particular that I thank everybody here for hosting this forum and for organizing it. I will just add some very subjective ideas, not as structured as your presentation at the moment, but some feedback which is, well, has been important to me. I start with the presentation of Gerald Bast yesterday. He was talking about the future universities, and I think by reading our blueprint, I had the privilege to read that before, we are really heading for the right track. A lot of things that have been mentioned there are now in the document that our experts here in UDRES have already drafted. In particular, when it comes to the vision and mission, and the presentation of Gerald Bast was towards the university in 30 years. I think it more or less is the program of our next 4 years. So we are quite ambitious with that. I liked the song Little Boxes. It visualizes what the situation in the system of higher education is at the moment. When looking at our own UDRES community, then I felt there's a certain spirit, and I was thinking about which song is reflecting that spirit. Do you have an idea? Maybe the older ones among us know the song We Are Family from Sister Sledge. It's a very nice song. You can dance on that. When I was younger, I did so. But this, I think, reflects quite well the spirit within our community, and I'm very thankful as one of the 3 new partners that we are really, we feel like being integrated in the community. We were also talking in that context about energy balls, energy exploding, falling in love. This is what I've noted down. It reflects to a certain extent what UDRES is all about. I listened carefully to what Raffaele Trapasso from OECD said. He was in particular talking about the USP of UDRES. We mentioned several times that there's a distinction between a University of Applied Science and a traditional research university. Our strength really is in, I think, teaching, applied research, and collaboration within the regions, and we have to really make use out of these strengths, agility, resilience, interdisciplinary activities within our regions. Another point, I thought your secret program, planting an Austrian cherry tree, was a very nice idea and a symbol that UDRES is growing. And by looking at my own delegation from Fulda, we were 10 people this time, the largest group of Fulda that I can remember, students, people from academia, external stakeholders, and I think this shows that we are growing, and this is also our duty to bring the UDRES idea into the whole university, into the region, in our countries, in Europe. And the last point I would like to make is we heard a lot about values, Europe and peace, and I had the privilege to have breakfast with Nadia and Irina from our new associated partner from the Ukraine. I think it's really worthwhile when listening to the 2 of them to do as much as we can in order to keep peace, at least in most of the parts of Europe, and therefore I think UDRES is a very important contribution to that. That was my summary.
Thank you very much. Thank you for wrapping up, and I will use the rare opportunity that I can cut the presidents from speaking. So thank you. Thank you very much for your contribution. Hannes, would you join me here, please? Because we really have to finish in a few minutes. And I think one thing before giving the floor to Hannes, I would really invite all the colleagues who were behind of the organization, Edita, Ramona, Birgit, Dori, Anna, and Larissa, because they made it. And I hope that you enjoyed it, but that was wonderful work. Thank you very much. And you have 1 minute, Hannes.
1 minute. First of all, also really thanks your brilliant team. Of course, big thanks to Michael for setting up the project, for facilitating us through these days, for keeping the time, and so on. Thanks for all of you, for all these inputs, the discussion. We had Gerald Bass, the most experienced director here in Austria. We had Raffaele Trapasso from OECD. We had Vanessa, who is really in charge in a very important position. We had the deputy minister from the Czech Republic. We had all of you. So I think, yes, UDRES already has and creates an impact. Of course, there are a lot of things for us to do. That's why I just want to finish with a short sentence from a movie and an exhibition which was a couple of years ago from Stefan Sagmeister, a very successful Austrian designer. And it was the Happiness movie or exhibition. And he painted on the wall with capital letters, complaining is silly, either act or forget. So this is one of his keys to happiness, and I think this is what we have to do, and this is what we will do all together with co-creation, co-learning, co-innovation. And yeah, thanks for that in advance. Let's see what we will talk and discuss in 1 year, in 10 years. I also, in Barcelona, I sang the parts of the European anthem by Beethoven and tried to remember that what makes Europe are some things which really date back to 200 years, 300 years, 500 years. In 500 years, probably no one will speak about European degrees and micro-credentials anymore. But maybe if we really do things right, people remember it was the starting point of a huge transformation of higher education, which preserved Europe from digital slavery and artificial intelligence taking over the system, and many other things, hopefully. I think this is what we should go for, what we should look for. Thanks a lot. Have a good afternoon, and then a safe trip back.
Once more, many thanks. Organizational issues, obviously, the food is outside. The work package facilitators will meet at 2 o'clock in the Future Lab, the one where the network session was next to the exhibition in the other building. And there will be overview where we are. JT will have his sort of update on the tools which we are using for coordination. And the executive board, enhanced executive board, will meet with the colleagues from the ministries at 2 o'clock in room A320, B320, which is the other building, 3rd floor, the executive meeting room. Thank you very much. Enjoy the lunch, and thanks for coming.